managed to survive 2 no-confidence motions that have been brought against him. But the question is obviously this: has the French Prime Minister got it in him to get a budget passed for 2026? But let's of course start with this big story that's come in from the United States of America, where the American Supreme Court is hearing a case that will have some defining consequences. Now, arguments are taking place in the top court on race-conscious map-making, and also the outcome threatens to gut certain key provisions on the Voting Rights Act. Now, affirmative action or race-based discrimination. So far, the states are allowed to have minority-dominated congressional districts, but the Supreme Court could put an end to this practice. Now, the case stems from a legal battle over Louisiana's congressional map. The conservative litigators have argued against race-based map-making. They say that the Democrats are getting an unfair advantage due to this. Now, the issue has put the focus on Voting Rights Act, the civil rights era law that prohibits electoral maps that dilute voting power of the minority groups. Now, conservatives have said that the much-cited Voting Rights Act is being misinterpreted, and race-based gerrymandering of congressional maps is against the Constitution. Now, minority groups, particularly the African-American voters, fear the dilution of their voting rights, and the current precedent ensures representation. If race goes out of consideration while congressional map-making, minority groups might lose that minimum guaranteed representation. The Supreme Court bench is dominated by conservative jurists, and on the first day of the argument, a majority of the judges hinted at gutting Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act.
The issue, as you know, is that this court's cases in a variety of contexts have said that race-based remedies are permissible for a period of time, sometimes for a long period of time, decades in some cases, but that they should not be indefinite and should have an end point.
The bottom line is just get rid of Section 2, because the test you're providing doesn't do anything for the effects test that Congress identified.
Now, the 9-judge bench also has some liberal voices. 3 liberal justices of the bench gave a pushback against the conservative argument and strongly defended Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act throughout. 2.5-hour-long argument.
The race-based redistricting that you're now objecting to is redistricting designed to remedy a specific, identified, proved violation of law. More, a specific, identified, proved racial discrimination by the state. That's the way in which the race-based districting is coming in. It's coming in as a remedy for specific, proved discrimination on the state's part.
All right, now to give us more details on this, we're joined on this broadcast by our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's joining us live from New York. So Susan, tell us more about what this case is and the ramifications it's expected to have before the midterm elections next year.
Yeah, it's so important for the midterms, Mohammed, as you noted, because this could, depending which way the vote goes, and the Supreme Court is expected to ultimately rule on this in June of 2026. So whichever way that this goes, ultimately it will be, which party gets more seats in that district. As you mentioned, it all started in Louisiana with 2 districts. They argue that they have a 2/3 majority of a black population, and that's why their districts should be the way that they are. However, some came out and sued and said that gerrymandering essentially on race is not prohibited. So now the justices have this case in front of them to determine not only regarding the Voting Rights Act that protects minorities, but also the interpretation of that clause in the Voting Rights Act on whether or not you could ultimately redistrict based on race. So that's the fight, that's what's at the heart of the fight, so to say, as we speak.
Interesting. We'll have to see as to how this fight unfolds. Thank you very much indeed, Susan Tehrani, for joining us with those updates there. All right, let's now shift our attention to what is happening in France. Now, against all odds, believe it or not, the French Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, has managed to survive two, not one, but two motions of no confidence that had been brought against him. A short while back, two motions of no confidence had been tabled by the hard left France Unbound and also the far-right National Rally. Sébastien Lecornu managed to survive both of these no-confidence motions as the votes fell short of the required majority that was needed to oust him again. Now, the latest wave of no-confidence motions has come just days after Lecornu announced his support to suspend a 2023 pension reform that has created a rift between the political parties. Now, despite the motions falling flat, the opposition parties have warned Lecornu and the French President Emmanuel Macron that he could be, or he would rather be, ousted out of power eventually.
Do not give in, do not lose courage, do not divide at the grassroots. We are making a solemn appeal for popular and parliamentary resistance to continue fighting against these cruel budgets. And we are saying, Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu, like President Emmanuel Macron, is on borrowed time, and sooner rather than later, the President of the Republic will have to go.
Now, the French Prime Minister now says that he is ready to get down to work done for the 2026 budget. The opposition to the proposed budget is what pushed Lecornu to resign earlier after less than 1 month of being in charge. Now, he was again reappointed by Emmanuel Macron to negotiate with the parties and to bring some stability to France. Lecornu now faces a bit of an uphill task to discuss the provisions of the budget and to try and reach a consensus in the parliament next week. Now, France's citizens are divided over the persistent political crisis. While many want stability in the country, the others are growing indifferent. Listen to some of the reactions.
Frankly, to be honest, I don't really care. Today we're less and less interested in politics. What we want is to have a somewhat stable situation. This game of musical chairs almost, I find it ridiculous. We need a little stability in France at last. Even at an international level, we're looking like clowns a little, so we need a little more stability.
All of this is not very reliable. So for me personally, it's more the kind of thing that will make me lose all confidence in public authorities. But then, I'm waiting to see.
All right, now all ministers in the government of Gujarat Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel have resigned ahead of a cabinet reshuffle. The 16-member cabinet included 8 cabinet-ranked ministers and 9 ministers of the state. The move is being seen as part of an administrative overhaul ahead of the key political developments in the state. The reshuffle also comes nearly 3 years into the government's term and just months before the crucial local body elections across the state, including the municipal corporations, the municipalities, the district panchayats and the taluka panchayats. And for more on this, our correspondent Disha Shah is joining us on the broadcast with more information. Disha, tell us why this cabinet reshuffle is needed. What is being sought to be achieved through this cabinet reshuffle, where all cabinet ministers, we are given to understand, have now resigned from their position?
Well, absolutely. So according to the officials from the Gujarat government, the move is seen as part of an administrative overhaul ahead of the key political developments in the state. So what we are being told by the top officials is the fact that among the current ministers, only Harsh Sanghvi and Rishikesh Patel are likely to be retained in the new cabinet. And right now, as we speak, at about 8 p.m., the BJP national president is also scheduled to meet all the Gujarat MLAs for dinner at the CM's residence. And later at 9:30 p.m., the Chief Minister Patel will meet Governor Acharya to submit the list of the ministers who are set to be sworn in. So tomorrow, the Gujarat cabinet is going to be expanded, and that is why we are looking at such moves where 16 Gujarat ministers have already resigned because the new cabinet formation will take place tomorrow around 10 a.m. and the new ministers are likely to be inducted, while nearly half of the current ministers may be replaced as part of the reshuffle.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Disha Shah, for joining us with all those updates then. Now, the American President Donald Trump's claim that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had assured him that India will stop purchasing Russian oil has set off a bit of a political firestorm in New Delhi. The opposition has said that the Prime Minister is letting Trump dictate India's foreign policy. Now, the government has rejected the idea that any discussions were even held.
They assured me they will, within a short period of time, they will not be buying oil from Russia. And they'll go back to Russia after the war's over.
Now, that single line from the American president has triggered a furious backlash in New Delhi. Ammo enough for the political opposition to train its guns on the Prime Minister. And Rahul Gandhi, of course, led the charge, accusing the Prime Minister of being frightened of Donald Trump. Rahul Gandhi's post on X has now upped the ante on this issue. This is what he has said, and I quote him here. Prime Minister Modi allows Donald Trump to decide that India won't purchase Russian oil, keeps sending congratulations despite the snubs, cancels visits and skips summits, doesn't contradict him on Operation Sindoor, he tweeted, listing out these issues point-wise. Now, the Congress has said that the government must clarify if such a promise was made by the Indian Prime Minister to the American President.
प्रधानमंत्री क्यों नहीं बोलते? क्या है हकीकत, क्या है रूस से तेल खरीदने का हकीकत, क्या है व्यापार समझौता क्यों रुका हुआ है, किन मुद्दों पर रुका हुआ है, पार्लियामेंट को विश्वास में लें.
Now, the BJP, of course, hit back, calling Rahul Gandhi's remarks to be a surrender of national interests. The leaders called it Congress's questioning for the sake of it, reiterating what it called a lack of direction and leadership in the grand old party. The Ministry of External Affairs cleared the air, saying that there had been no discussions between Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi. The External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has repeatedly said that India's energy policy is guided by what's best for its citizens and not by Western approval. So, with New Delhi insisting on strategic autonomy, Trump's latest remarks have stirred up trouble both at home and abroad. The question now is this: did Modi really promise to stop purchasing Russian oil in a conversation with Donald Trump, or is Donald Trump once again overplaying his hand? So, it's election time in the crucial Indian state of Bihar. The state, of course, is going to be going to the assembly polls next month, and political drama is unfolding as the deadline to file nomination is getting closer. The opposition alliance is facing a bit of uncertainty. The Congress-RJD-led NDA bloc is yet to finalize its seat-sharing agreement. Earlier in the day, the Congress chief Mallikarjun Kharge and Rahul Gandhi held a meeting on the Bihar polls, where the party is yet to announce any kind of a breakthrough in its seat-sharing formula with the RJD. Now, despite the stalemate, the Congress has announced at least about 20 candidates. The RJD, on the other hand, is also moving ahead with nominations. The RJD leader and the son of gangster-turned politician Shahabuddin has filed a nomination from Raghunathpur. Now, the party's chief Tejasvi Yadav is contesting from Raghopur seat. The NDA alliance is making strides in seat sharing, and all the parties in the alliance have released the full list of the candidates allotted to them. The JDU and the BJP are contesting on about 101 seats each. Small alliance partners like HAM and RLM are contesting on 6 seats. And Chirag Paswan-led Lok Janashakti Party has fielded about 29 candidates, taking the total of the finalized candidates within the NDA to 243. From the battle of seat sharing within the alliance to the battle between the alliances, the Bihar politics has been dominated by parties in the NDA and India bloc for the last 2 decades. But this time there is a new debutant who's trying his hand at what he can achieve in the political battleground of Bihar. And the gentleman is on your screens. Prashant Kishore has thrown his hat into the ring with his new party Jan Suraj that is contesting all seats in Bihar. But Prashant Kishore has himself, interestingly, so far refrained from contesting in the political battle. Now, Bihar elections are slated to take place in 2 separate phases, starting from the 6th of November. The last date to file the nominations is the 17th of October for the first phase and the 20th of October for the second and the final phase. Now, the American President Donald Trump has said that he is considering military strikes on land targets to combat the flow of drugs from Venezuelan cartels into the United States after 5 recent maritime attacks on alleged drug smuggling boats. Now, Trump has confirmed that the CIA-led covert operations have been authorized inside Venezuela, signaling a major escalation in Washington's pressure strategy against President Nicolas Maduro.
I authorized for 2 reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the, they came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
In response, the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has condemned what he's called the CIA-led coup d'etat, saying that there should be no war in the Caribbean and no regime change and no CIA-orchestrated coups. He spoke during an address to a committee formed after Washington deployed warships to the Caribbean for an anti-drug operation. When asked whether he had given the CIA the authority to take out Maduro, the American President Donald Trump declined to answer directly.
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer? But I think Venezuela is feeling heat, but I think a lot of other countries are feeling heat too.
China has stated its opposition to any external interference in Venezuela's internal matters and has rejected the use of force in international relations. It supports international cooperation to combat cross-border crimes, and China has urged Washington to pursue lawful cooperation through established bilateral and multilateral frameworks. At least about 27 people have been killed so far in America's Caribbean attacks following the latest boat strike. Military exercises were carried out along Venezuela's Atlantic Caribbean coast, with additional operations planned in states bordering Colombia. In a message on Telegram, President Nicolas Maduro has said that he is mobilizing the military, the police, and also a civilian militia to defend Venezuela's mountains, coasts, schools, hospitals, factories, and markets. Now, the American president has accused Nicolas Maduro of heading a drug cartel and charges that he has denied. In August, Washington had doubled the bounty for information, leading to Maduro's capture to $50 million. So let's take a look at some of the CIA's covert operations in Venezuela. Now, Caracas has long accused the CIA of orchestrating multiple plots to either overthrow or to assassinate the former president Hugo Chavez, including the short-lived US-backed coup in 2002. Most recently, in 2024, the DEA had launched a secretive operation inside Venezuela, deploying undercover agents to surreptitiously gather evidence and to build the drug trafficking cases against the country's top leadership. So let's now take a look at some of the significant CIA operations. It started in 1950, immediately after the Second World War. The CAT Airlines, or Airlines America, the CIA secretly took control of the civil air transport, which later became Air America, flying covert missions alongside the commercial routes until 1976. In 1954, the U-2 spy plane episode, the U-2 aircraft developed in 1954 began missions over Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union, gathering critical intelligence during the Second World War. Now, in 1957, the first satellite reconnaissance program, Corona, began in 1957, capturing over 800,000 images to monitor Eastern Europe and Asia. In 1980, the CIA orchestrated a covert rescue of 6 US diplomats in Iran, posing as a Canadian film crew. In 2001, following the 9/11 attacks, the CIA apparently launched operations in Afghanistan to gather intelligence and to dismantle the Al-Qaeda. In 2011, the Abbottabad mission, the CIA led a mission that resulted in the killing of Osama bin Laden, a pivotal moment in the fight against terror. A political change of guard in Peru has triggered a wave of protests in the capital city of Lima, where the demonstrators are calling the interim leadership of the country to be more of the same and are also demanding for some real change. Youth organizations are calling themselves Generation Z and are leading the protests in the country, and they're calling for interim President Jose Jerry and Congress lawmakers to resign.
Today, we have come to tell Mr. Jose Jerry that he does not represent us. He is more of the same. They have changed for the worse. This Congress has become a factory of corrupt laws.
The protests took a violent turn when hundreds of demonstrators tried to tear down the railings in front of the Congress building. The police intervention led to clashes between both sides, leading to several officials and protesters getting injured. The Peruvians are now rallying against the new interim government. After the Congress ousted the former President Dina Boluarte during a late-night session on the 10th of October. Now, immediately after she was removed, the Congress appointed Jose Jerry, making him Peru's 7th president since 2016. In his inaugural speech last week, Jerry in fact assured crackdown on crime and organized gangs, but the Peruvians do not appear to be convinced. And those protesting in the country are demanding for proper action against crime in Peru and corruption within the government. The protesters from civil groups, labor unions, transport workers and members of Generation Z are calling for a constituent assembly to rewrite the constitution and to close down the Congress. Now, Bolivia is headed into a historic runoff on Sunday, the 19th of October, a battle that could potentially redefine the country's political future amidst a persistent economic crisis. Liberal Jorge Tuto Quiroga and the centrist Rodrigo Paz has allowed their campaign with massive rallies. Now, speaking to thousands of supporters in La Paz, Quiroga promised a free project that would end the crisis and bring investment and open markets. He's also promised to seek support from the International Monetary Fund if he were to be elected.
Les pido que nos pidan el voto. ¿Para qué?
I ask to ask for the vote. For what? To open the doors to change with hope for the free project that ends the crisis, brings investment, and opens markets. It provides health, it provides education, it provides infrastructure, deepens autonomy, makes you the digital and technological Bolivia, and we make Bolivia a country of owners.
In the southern city of Tarija, Rodrigo Paz closed his campaign with a message of unity and reform. The former senator and mayor said a new era is beginning with the new people and has promised no corruption in the country.
There is little time left to change this story. There is little time left to transform justice. There is little time left to transform institutions. There is little time left to fight corruption.
But the elections have come at a time when the Bolivians are facing their worst economic crisis. Now, both candidates have blamed the current situation on the policies of the Mas government. The ruling powers are reeling from an internal split between President Luis Arce and the former President Evo Morales. Now, this division has led to the party's worst first-round defeat in nearly about 20 years. And according to the latest Ipsos Siasmori poll, Quiroga has emerged as the front-runner. He has the support of nearly about 44.9% of the respondents, and Rodrigo Paz is trailing way behind with about 36.5% of the votes. The shutter is, of course, down on the election campaigning. Now the time for electoral silence begins till the vote on Sunday, giving the voters time to contemplate on their final choice for Bolivia's next president. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of our newscast. This is Mohammed Saleh signing off. Thanks for watching.
This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
the best day of my life.
Donald Trump is the greatest friend that the state of Israel has ever had in the White House. Mr. President, you are committed to this peace. I am committed to this peace for their great contribution to this effort.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look at what is making headlines at this hour.